The world will respect it. When you think about the difference between being available and being valuable, the first thing you must understand is that availability is everywhere, but value is rare. Being available all the time may sound like a good quality on the surface. People might say, "You're always there when I need you." But what that really translates into over time is that your presence is expected, not appreciated. When something is always accessible, it loses its uniqueness. Think about water coming from a tap. As long as it keeps flowing, most people don't stop to treasure it. But imagine being stranded in the desert for just a day. That same water suddenly becomes precious, priceless even. The difference wasn't the water itself. The difference was the value placed on it because of its scarcity. In life, when you make yourself constantly available to everyone, you become like that tap that never stops running. At first, people might see it as generous, but eventually they stop noticing the effort, the sacrifice, the presence you bring. They start to assume you will always answer, always show up, always give. The truth is, when people assume you'll always be there, they stop valuing the fact that you are. This is why being valuable, not available, matters so much. Because value comes from meaning, from what you carry inside, from the power you bring when you step in, not from how many times you show up on demand. Rare things carry weight. Diamonds, gold, masterpieces, none of them are easy to find, and that's exactly why people respect them, protect them, and chase after them. If diamonds were lying on every street corner, no one would bend down to pick them up. They would be treated like stones under our feet. The rarity creates the reverence. The same principle applies to you and your presence. If you are always available, people begin to treat you like that stone, common, ordinary, replaceable. But when you move with intention, when you give your presence with purpose, your value is multiplied in the eyes of those around you. Being valuable doesn't mean being absent. It doesn't mean ignoring people. It means being intentional. It means understanding that your time, your energy, your focus, your gifts are not endless resources to be handed out to anyone who demands them. It means realizing that if you want people to respect your worth, you must treat yourself as worthy first. If you constantly allow yourself to be stretched thin, you dilute the power you bring. But if you protect your time and give it only when it matters, what you bring becomes memorable, impactful, and deeply appreciated. Availability is easy. It doesn't require thought. It doesn't require standards. It doesn't require strength. Value, on the other hand, requires discipline. It requires saying no when it would be easier to say yes. It requires focus when distractions are pulling at you. It requires faith that what you bring is enough, even if you don't give it away every single moment. And when you commit to living as valuable rather than just available, you elevate how others see you, how they treat you, and most importantly, how you see yourself. Protecting your time and energy is one of the most powerful things you can do for yourself, because these are the two resources that can never be replaced once they are spent. Time is finite, and energy, while renewable to some extent, has its limits too. The reality is that when you give your time and energy away freely to everyone and everything, you end up drained, scattered, and unable to focus on what truly matters. People who don't value your worth will gladly take as much as you give them. And if you never set boundaries, you'll find yourself depleted with nothing left for the things that matter most to you. Protecting these resources is not selfish, it's essential. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and you cannot serve others effectively if you are constantly running on fumes. When you protect your time, you send a clear message that your hours and your presence are meaningful. You teach people to treat your time with respect, rather than assuming it will always be available at their convenience. Think about someone who is always late or constantly cancels plans. They are showing you that they don't respect your time, and that disrespect creates frustration. Now ask yourself, how often do you disrespect your own time by letting anyone interrupt it, anyone claim it, or anyone waste it? Every moment you spend on something unimportant is a moment taken away from your growth, your goals, and your purpose. Protecting your time means deciding intentionally what deserves your focus and what does not. Energy works the same way. Your energy is not limitless, and who you give it to determines what you get back. Some people lift you higher, inspire you, and motivate you to do more. Others drain you, leaving you tired, negative, and doubting yourself. If you allow everyone access to your energy, you risk surrounding yourself with people who take without giving back. Protecting your energy means being selective about where and to whom you direct your attention. It's about knowing which relationships feed your spirit and which ones starve it. It's about understanding that not every battle is yours to fight. Not every call is yours to answer, and not every request is yours to fulfill. When you fail to guard your time and energy, you allow others to control your life. You end up living on their terms, serving their agenda instead of your own. Protecting these resources is how you reclaim your power. It is how you create space for your goals, your rest, your growth, and your joy. You don't need to be accessible to everyone. You don't need to answer every phone call, respond to every message, or agree to every request. You need to choose carefully so that your yes is powerful and your no is respected. When people see that your time and energy are not given freely but intentionally, they start to appreciate it more deeply when you do give it. That appreciation is born from the value you place on yourself. First, rarity creates respect. And that is a truth visible in every corner of life if you take a moment to look closely. The things people treasure most are the ones that are not easily found or easily reached. A masterpiece of art hanging in a gallery is admired not just because of the colors on the canvas, but because there is only one like it in the world. A rare gem carries worth not because it shines, but because very few exist. This principle holds true for people as well. When you make yourself rare in the right way, when you are not constantly accessible, not constantly giving away your presence, you naturally command a higher level of respect from those around you. People begin to realize that your time, your attention, and your energy are not endless supplies they can reach for whenever they please. They are privileges, not entitlements. Being rare does not mean being absent or distant without reason. It means being intentional. When you are selective about when and how you show up, your presence carries weight. Imagine someone who never misses a chance to talk, who is always the loudest voice in the room. At first, their words may capture attention, but eventually, people tune them out because they are always there, always speaking, always available. Now, imagine someone who chooses their words carefully, who speaks less often, but when they do, people lean in. That's the power of rarity. It multiplies impact. Your presence becomes more powerful because it is not handed out carelessly. When you are everywhere, people stop noticing you. But when you are selective about where you invest yourself, you create anticipation. Just like a highly anticipated movie release or rare performance, your appearance becomes an event rather than a routine. People pay attention, they listen more closely, and they value what you bring because it is not something they can get at any time. The scarcity of your presence is what magnifies its significance. That is why those who know how to preserve their rarity often hold positions of influence and respect. It is important to understand that rarity requires discipline. It is tempting to respond to every request, to attend every gathering, to prove loyalty by being constantly available. But when you do that, you spread yourself too thin, and people begin to assume you will always be there, no matter the cost. They stop treating your time as a gift and start treating it as an obligation. To avoid this, you must set boundaries that protect your value. You must be comfortable with saying no, not out of arrogance, but out of wisdom. Respect is not given to what is common, it is given to what is uncommon. When you choose to treat yourself as rare, when you choose to protect your time, your voice, and your presence, others are taught to see you the same way. Your value increases because you are no longer everywhere. You are exactly where you choose to be, and that choice makes you unforgettable. Saying no when necessary is one of the hardest but most important skills to develop if you want to be valuable instead of simply available. Many people struggle with this because they are afraid of disappointing others, of being misunderstood, or of losing approval. They confuse constant yes with kindness, when in truth, constant yes often leads to resentment, burnout, and being taken for granted. A yes that costs you your peace, your energy, or your focus is not generosity. It is self-neglect. Every time you say yes to something that doesn't align with your priorities, you are saying no to something that does. The art of saying no is really about protecting what matters most and making sure your time and energy are invested where they bring meaning, growth, and fulfillment. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are fences that guard your worth. When you set limits and say no to things that drain you or distract you, you are not rejecting people. You are protecting your value. Imagine a professional athlete preparing for a championship. They say no to late nights, no to unhealthy habits, no to distractions that could weaken their focus. Are they being selfish? No, they are being disciplined, and because of that discipline, they are able to perform at a level others respect. In the same way, your no is a form of discipline that allows your yes to carry more strength. When you say yes after many intentional no's, people know your commitment means something. It is not given lightly, it is given with weight. Saying no also teaches others how to treat you. If you always bend, people will keep pushing. If you never refuse, people will assume you exist to meet their needs. But when you start saying no respectfully and firmly, people learn to approach you with consideration. They understand that your time and energy have boundaries, and that awareness breeds respect. The more you practice this, the more you train others to value your presence because they know it cannot be demanded. It must be deserved. Another important truth is that every no creates space for a better yes. When you say no to toxic relationships, you create space for healthier connections. When you say no to meaningless tasks, you create space for purposeful work. When you say no to distractions, you create space for focus and growth. Life is not about doing everything, it is about doing the right things. Without the power of no, your life gets filled with clutter, leaving little room for what truly matters. There will always be people who don't like your no. They will call you distant, selfish, or difficult because they benefited from your lack of boundaries. But you cannot shape your life around keeping everyone else comfortable. Growth requires courage, and courage often requires saying no when your heart wants to please, but your spirit knows better. Every no you give from a place of wisdom protects your value, strengthens your character, and preserves the energy you need to make a meaningful impact. Don't just show up, bring impact, because presence without purpose is empty. Too many people believe that simply being in the room is enough, that their attendance alone carries weight, but the truth is, it's not about being present, it's about what you bring when you are present. Showing up is easy. Anyone can walk into a space, sit down, and exist. But impact is about transformation, about leaving behind something that changes the atmosphere, something that makes people glad you came, something that makes your absence felt when you leave. Presence may get you noticed, but impact gets you remembered. When you bring impact, you carry with you a sense of intention. You don't just speak to fill silence, you speak to add value. You don't just listen with half an ear, you listen deeply to understand and connect. You don't just contribute when asked, you anticipate what the moment requires and you give it with excellence. People who bring impact aren't necessarily the loudest in the room, but when they talk, others lean in. They don't waste words or actions, and because of that, what they do resonates more powerfully. Think about the difference between a person who attends a meeting but contributes nothing and a person who may only say one sentence but changes the entire direction of the conversation. The first was present, but the second made an impact. Think about someone who shows up for a friend in a time of need, not just to say "I'm here," but to actually listen, encourage, and offer support that strengthens them. That's the difference between mere presence and true impact. People forget who was in the crowd, but they never forget the one voice that spoke to their heart. Impact requires preparation. It requires thought. It requires that you enter spaces ready to give something of value, whether that's knowledge, wisdom, encouragement, or simply a strong example of character. Too many people walk into rooms without preparing, without considering how they can make that space better, and as a result they fade into the background. But those who are intentional about impact, who step into every environment asking themselves, what can I contribute here that matters? Those are the ones who rise above the noise. Impact also builds legacy. Long after people forget what you wore, what you looked like, or even the exact words you said, they will remember how you made them feel. They will remember the impression you left on their hearts. That's why simply being present is not enough. Anyone can take up space, but not everyone can shift the energy in that space. Presence without impact is invisible. Presence with impact is unforgettable. So when you walk into a room, don't aim just to be noticed. Aim to be necessary. Don't settle for blending in. Choose to stand out by what you bring. Your consistency, your excellence, your energy, your wisdom. These are the things that create impact. Showing up gets you through the door, but impact is what ensures the door stays open for you again. And again, choosing quality over quantity is a principle that applies to nearly every area of life. And it is especially important when it comes to how you use your time, energy, and presence. Many people fall into the trap of believing that the more they do, the more valuable they will seem. They think that showing up everywhere, saying yes to everything, and staying constantly busy is proof of productivity and importance. But the truth is, spreading yourself too thin doesn't make you valuable, it makes you diluted. Doing more does not equal doing better. It is the quality of what you give, not the number of times you give it, that truly leaves a lasting impact. Consider relationships as an example. You can have hundreds of acquaintances, people you see or talk to occasionally, but if none of those connections run deep, you are left with surface-level bonds that don't provide support or meaning. On the other hand, having just a few close relationships built on trust, respect, and genuine care will enrich your life in a way that endless shallow connections never could. This is quality over quantity in action. The depth of those few relationships makes them far more valuable than the sheer number of casual interactions. The same principle applies to work and goals. You can fill your schedule with endless tasks, crossing off dozens of items from your to-do list every day. But if none of those tasks move you closer to your true purpose, you're simply staying busy without making progress. Quantity of effort without direction leads to exhaustion. But focusing on quality, doing fewer things, but doing them with excellence and intentionality, creates results that matter. One meaningful achievement outweighs dozens of meaningless activities. One moment of excellence can echo louder than hours of average work. Quality also speaks to how you show up in the moments you choose. Imagine walking into a room and giving half of yourself, half your attention, half your focus, half your energy, because you are already thinking about the next place you have to be. That kind of presence does not leave an impression. But if you choose fewer commitments and give them your full attention, people feel it. They sense the weight of your presence, the strength of your contribution, the authenticity of your effort. You can do less, but if you give your best, your impact will be greater than someone who does more without depth. Another layer to this truth is that quality requires sacrifice. It requires letting go of the illusion that you can do it all, be everywhere, and please everyone. It requires narrowing your focus and choosing what is worth your best energy and what is not. This may mean disappointing some people, missing out on some opportunities, or walking away from distractions. But in exchange, you preserve your ability to deliver real value where it matters most. Quantity is about appearances, it makes you look busy. Quality is about substance, it makes you truly effective. When you commit to quality over quantity, you train yourself to be impactful, intentional, and respected, because you're no longer concerned with doing more. You're focused on doing what matters. With excellence, availability is about presence, but value is about power. And that distinction changes everything about the way you approach life. Being available means you are there, physically present, within reach, ready to respond. But presence without meaning does not guarantee influence. Presence alone does not demand respect. A chair is present in the room, A lamp is present in the room, but neither carries power. Power comes from the ability to shift the environment, to influence outcomes, to leave behind something that cannot be ignored. When you understand that your worth is not measured by how often you show up, but by what happens when you do, you begin to prioritize value over availability. Think about people who carry authority or deep respect. They are not always around, they are not always accessible, but when they do appear, the atmosphere changes. Their presence carries weight because it is tied to value. People anticipate what they will say, how they will act, and what decisions they will make, because their contribution matters. Compare that with someone who is always present, always available, yet whose presence doesn't change the room. They may be seen, but they are not truly noticed. That is the difference between availability and value. When you focus only on availability, you can easily slip into people pleasing. You want to be everywhere, for everyone, at every moment, thinking that your presence alone will keep you relevant. But over time, this makes you ordinary, predictable, and replaceable. People expect you to be there, and because they expect it, they stop appreciating it. But when you focus on value, you approach every opportunity with intention. You don't just show up to fill space, you show up to add meaning, to contribute something that leaves a mark. This is what turns presence into power. The key lies in preparation and purpose. Power comes from being rooted in what you stand for, from carrying something within you that others can sense when you walk into the room. It may be wisdom, integrity, excellence, or inspiration, but whatever it is, it transforms your presence into influence. This doesn't require you to be loud or demanding. True power often moves quietly, but firmly. People respect it not because it asks for attention, but because it commands attention through authenticity and impact. Availability is temporary. It ends when you leave. Value is lasting. It remains long after you're gone. When someone who only brought availability exits, nothing changes. When someone who brought value exits, their absence is felt, and people talk about the difference they made. That is the legacy of power. It lingers beyond the moment and continues to influence others even in silence. Choosing value over availability requires courage. It means you won't always be reachable, you won't always say yes, and you won't always show up on demand. But it also means that when you do show up, people will know it matters. They will understand that your presence is not casual, it is intentional. It is not ordinary. It is powerful. Respect follows value, not access. And this is a principle that plays out in every area of life. People don't respect what they can get anytime, anywhere, with no effort. They respect what is rare, what is earned, and what carries meaning. Access, by itself, doesn't create admiration. It often creates the opposite. When someone is always within reach, when they never say no, when their time, energy, and attention are handed out without thought, people stop recognizing the worth behind the gift. What is given too freely becomes ordinary, and what is ordinary is rarely respected. Respect grows when others recognize that what you offer has depth, quality, and significance, not just availability. Think about relationships. If a person knows they can call you at any hour, and you will always drop everything for them, they might take advantage of that access without truly valuing the sacrifice you make. They may appreciate it in the moment, but over time it becomes expected. On the other hand, if you establish boundaries and choose when to give your time based on sincerity, people notice the intention behind your presence. They respect that when you show up, it is because you truly care, not because you had no choice. That difference shifts how people view you. Access makes you convenient, but value makes you respected. Consider also how leaders earn respect. It isn't because they are available to everyone at every moment. It's because when they do give their time and attention, it comes with wisdom, with impact, and with clarity. People respect their contribution, not their accessibility. That same truth applies to everyday life. If you give people unlimited access to you without ensuring that what you give has meaning, you end up undervaluing yourself and teaching others to do the same. When you focus on bringing value, whether through your actions, your words, or your presence, you naturally command a higher level of respect. Respect is tied to perception, and perception is shaped by the way you treat yourself. If you treat your time as cheap, others will too. If you allow yourself to be interrupted constantly, if you allow people to drain your energy without hesitation, you are showing them that your boundaries don't exist. And when boundaries don't exist, neither does respect. But when you set standards and communicate that your attention and presence are meaningful, people rise to meet that expectation. They begin to see you differently because you see yourself differently. The truth is, respect can never be demanded, it must be earned. And it is not earned through being everywhere at once or giving everything away. It is earned through consistency, authenticity, and the ability to make your presence matter. Access creates familiarity, but too much familiarity often leads to complacency. Value creates distinction, and distinction leads to respect. When you understand this, you stop chasing approval by making yourself constantly available, and you start building respect by ensuring that when you do give yourself, it carries weight. Too many people think the secret to success is being everywhere for everyone all the time. But let me tell you something. When you're always available, you stop being valuable. The question is, do you want to be convenient or do you want to be unforgettable? Remember, this availability may get you noticed for a moment, but value will make you respected for a lifetime. Don't live to be everywhere. Live to matter where it counts. Be valuable, not available.